What's going on YouTube? This is ParkerLad88 coming at you with another video. And in this video, we're going to be doing another installment of the Gettin Good series. And in this video specifically, we're going to be talking about the Megazords. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so as previously mentioned, we're going to be talking about everything surrounding the Megazords. We're going to be talking about how to Megazord, when you should be Megazording, we're going to be running through each of the Megazord's abilities, and then we're also going to talk about defensive strategies and offensive strategies while using the Megazord, or facing the Megazord. So, let's start off by talking about how do we Megazord. Well, if we press both assist buttons together, the Megazord becomes available. I like to actually have a button specifically designated for this, which for me is going to be L2. Then, if you press the light, medium, and attack options, your Megazord will do an assortment of things. Kind of like this. And as you can see, there's a little cooldown before each ability, and then when ability is active, there'll be a danger sign that flashes on the screen to let your opponent know that a Megazord move is coming, and it's up to your opponent to defend against it. This is going to be like your X Factor if any of you guys have played like Marble 3 or any other game that has kind of like a comeback mechanic like this. The fewer characters that you have, the longer you get to use your Megazord for, and I believe it does not become available until you lose your first character. Subsequently, you can only have one Megazord on the screen at one time. Otherwise, that'd probably make things really, really crazy. It'd probably be kind of fun just because of all the chaos, but that probably would be a little bit too crazy. So, that is pretty much how we Megazord. Now, let's talk about things that you can actually Megazord from. One good thing about the Megazord, in addition to just having it available, it also resets your character position. So depending on what you are doing, you can use it to do like custom combos. So let's say with Cat I want to do something like this, right? I can press the Megazord afterwards and do some neat combos from it. So let's say I want to do something like this. And then the Megazord comes in and I can do combos from that. So you can pretty much combo from any normal or command normal, I think. There's one situation in which I haven't been able to actually, get the Megazord to come out. So if I do Cat's Sobot kick, which is her forward and hard, and I press the Megazord button, I just get my assist to come out at the same time. So I don't know if that's for all like forward directional button like command normals, or if it's just specifically for Cat, but that's just something to consider. But I can also do it off a launcher, which is back with hard for Cat. And then you can also do it from your EX. So you can do things like that. It's really nice that you can actually do that, because of the fact that it resets your character animation, you can actually use it to keep yourself safe if you really need to. So let's say you're down to your last character, right? And you are in a situation where you want to use like an EX, but your opponent blocks it, right? So your opponent blocks it. You can just cancel it straight into Megazord, keep yourself safe, or you can continue maintaining pressure since it resets your character animation, and then you have the Megazord to back you up. Now, as far as I'm aware, you cannot do this from throw. Like, you can't cancel the Megazord from your throw animation, and then you also cannot cancel it from super as well. So those are a couple things to consider. So once again, you can do it from any normal, pretty much any command normal, and EX. Throws and supers are off the board. So, now, let's go ahead and start running through the Megazord abilities, starting with the OG Mighty Morphin Dino Megazord. So, the light attack option gives us the sword swipe right across the screen here. The medium attack option gives us a foot stomp and then a boot. And then the hard attack option is the power sword, and then some sparks come off the power sword. Now, one thing to note about the Dino Megazord is that if you do the foot stomp, as the defender, you must block it low, as you guys can see right there. This move also does have off-the-ground hitting capabilities. I haven't been able to actually use it practically, but the options are there. I think that the Mighty Morphin Megazord is a really good Megazord just to get you acquainted to how the Megazord works. All of its abilities are very practical just because of the screen coverage and everything, but it's not like the most fantastical. It's a nice middle ground Megazord. So let's go ahead and move on to the next. Alright guys, so next up we have Goldar. So Goldar's light attack option, probably his best option, he does multiple sword stabs into the ground about 3 times. This is a great ability because not only does it lock down your opponent, it also hits off the ground. That means that combo follow-ups are pretty easy for this. Now, Goldar's medium attack option has him do multiple foot stomps. This you do have to block high, it is an overhead. And then the hard attack option does a Goldar punches you from the other side. You can do this, you can probably use this to do some interesting left-right mix-ups just because it does hit from behind, and it also does cause a wall bounce as well. Now Goldar I don't think is the most fantastical of the Megazords. He does have the one really good move in Standing Light just because it does the multiple sword swipes to lock down your opponent, allowing you to get closer to them. But outside of that, I don't think Goldar is like, you know, the most amazing. But at the same time, he's still pretty decent. Alright, now let's talk about the Dragonzord. The light attack option for the Dragonzord does a tail drill. This is a fantastic move for locking down your opponent so you can close the distance on them and then just put more pressure on your opponent. The medium attack option does the Dragonzord foot stomp. As you can see, it takes a little bit longer for it to come out, but the reason why that is because unlike Goldar in the Dino Megazord, you actually cannot block this move. That means the only way to avoid it is to be in the air, and then it puts your opponent in a stagger state, which makes it easy to follow up for combos. Now, the final option is going to be the Tail Slam. This Tail Slam is an overhead. Just keep that in mind, and it's just, you know, another wise way to open the opponent up. I definitely think that the Dragonzord is probably the best of the Megazords up to this point, just because of how practical all of his moves are for opening up your opponent and pressuring them so, you know, you can actually get hits and make that comeback. Alright, so now let's talk about the new kid on the block, and that is the SPD Megazord. So his light attack option gives you this judgment thingy, and then one of 2 things can happen, as you guys can see. Let's see if I can get them both to come out. One more time. So as you guys can see, the light attack option puts this, one of 2 things can happen. You'll either get an innocent verdict or a guilty verdict, as it is called. Now, if you get the innocent verdict, you'll see like a blue aura will appear around your character, and this actually heals what is like your potential health. So as you take damage in this game, there is health that you can recover if you tag out, and the SPD Megazord can allow you to recover that. Now, if there is a guilty verdict or whatever, then a bunch of missiles will lock in on the opponent, and will hit them with missiles. I can't get the Megazord to actually demonstrate this for me for some strange reason. I guess he's just feeling really innocent today. Doesn't want to kill anybody, but trust me, he shoots missiles which knock your opponent up. About 3 of them, and knock them up into the air, which is pretty good for combos and pretty good for pressure as well. The medium attack option will have these handcuffs that come down from the ground. This is an unblockable move, but as you can see, it does not put the opponent in any hit stun. What this move actually does is if your opponent is in the air, it prevents them from blocking in the air, which is really important when we get into defensive and offensive strategies for the Megazord. But the other thing that it can possibly do is on the ground, it prevents your opponent from jumping, which once again is very important. We'll get into that. Now, the last ability is pretty simple. It's basically just a taser thingy. As you can see, it hits multiple times, and then if you get hit by it, then it'll put your opponent in a stun state similar to like Zeo Gold's Gold Rush or Movie Blue's like Screen Shockwave type dealy. I definitely think that the SPD Megazord is the most interesting out of all of them, just because of how it focuses on, like, you know, debuffing your opponent or buffing you up, sort of things like that. So if you're looking for a more interesting Megazord, then I definitely think that the SPD Megazord is the Megazord for you. So now that we're done going over all of that, let's go ahead and talk about defensive options against the Megazord. So your opponent has the Megazord active. What things can you do in order to deal with the Megazord? You've probably seen some of these as you've played, depending on how experienced players that you have played against. But one of the most common things that you will see is this little maneuver right here. You'll see them just jump up and back, up and back, up and back. This is a technique that is known as chicken blocking. It is a very good way to actually deal with Megazords because as far as Megazords that, let's say, have like low hitting moves or over hitting moves, and you're an aggressor and you're trying to like mix up your opponent by doing lows and overheads and all kind of craziness in combination with the Megazord, yeah, chicken blocking don't care about any kind of thing like that. So it's a very good defensive maneuver to do. Let's see, other things. Now, another maneuver that you will see people do in order to deal with Megazords is a couple things. Throws are a really good way to deal with Megazords because while you're in the middle of a throw animation, Megazords cannot hit you with anything that they do. EXs, because they have inherent invincibility, are another good way to deal with the Megazords. You have to have a good feel that your opponent is trying to pressure you before you throw out the EX, because once again, if you throw out the EX and you block it, EXs aren't safe, so you can open yourself up to a combo punish. So those are pretty much the main defensive strats against the Megazords. Now, let's say that you have the Megazord and you know your opponent is going to do these things and you want to be able to, pressure your opponent and actually do what the Megazord is there to do. There are a couple things that you can do to combat this. One thing, of course, is just being patient. An EX, if you have meter, is the most typical way you'll see people defend against the Megazord because they know it's invincible. So patience is going to be your best friend in that situation. Try to bait your opponent into using the EX move so you can get a really easy punish on your opponent, just because you know that it's unsafe. Now, let's talk about offensive strats against chicken blocking. As I mentioned before, this is a really good way to deal with Megazords, but guess what it doesn't deal with? Launchers. If you actually hit your opponent with an anti-air launcher in this game, Cat doesn't have the best one. They cannot block that in the air. I think this is probably to offset the fact that there are like no air throws in this game or something like that. Otherwise, your opponent could just do this for forever and you couldn't do anything about it. So, combat that launcher. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind. Look for your opportunities to lock them down with a certain Megazord until you can get close enough. Anticipate that they're going to jump, or just see if they jump, and then after that, just smack them out of the air and you get full combo. So that's the main thing that I want to talk to you guys about as far as you being an aggressor with a Megazord. The rest of it just kind of comes down to your specific Megazord abilities. Like I mentioned before, with the SPD Megazord, this move is really good for that. Your opponent can't block in the air, so you can hit them. So if you want a more creative way to open them up, I would suggest the SPD Megazord if you find you're running into that a lot. And just the fact that if you hit them with the medium attack option when they're on the ground, preventing them from jumping, is really a good way to deal with that defensive mechanic. The Dragonzord's Drill Tail is a really good way to close the distance on your opponent, so when they do actually jump, you can hit them out of the air with a launcher, certain things like that. And that, guys, pretty much covers everything that I want to talk about involving the Megazords. Offensively, defensively, how to use them, and what their abilities are. And with a sprinkle of which Megazords I think are good for certain situations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I'll be back to you later with future videos. This is Parker Lad, and I will see you guys next time.